It's that sense that you often can't always express in words what you're thinking and why, but you know that it's true in your gut. And it's this sense of incorporating emotion into our decision making. Welcome to the Independent School Podcast. Thinking and acting strategically is the key to both securing the future of your school and helping to build a more equal and just world. My name's Juliette Corbett. I'm a consultant, speaker and facilitator specialising in helping independent schools. In this podcast, I translate tried and tested strategy and fundraising techniques into a language that works for schools. So if you're a senior leader in a private school and you want your daily work to feel less exhausting and more strategic, and if you want once more to feel the joy of making the world a better place through education, then you're in the right place. Welcome, and let's get started on this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode where we're going to be talking about wise strategy and the importance of incorporating intuition into your decision making. Now, this might be a slightly surprising topic for some people. I find that generally speaking, strategy in people's minds equates to purely analytical, rational decision making where we sort of turn into robots and we need all the data in front of us to make the perfect strategic decision. In actual fact, that's a misconception. Strategy needs intuition and unconscious thought, gut instinct, if you like, as well as elements of analytical and rational thought too. And the best example of this is I run the Lucidity Accelerator program, which is a group coaching program for people who are looking to make strategic changes in their career. So these are people who want to have a more strategic approach to their career. And when I tell them, actually, we need to dive into your intuition, you need to bring your gut instincts, your kind of emotional, instinctive intuition to the table, to our conversations, as well as your rational, conscious thinking as well. They look really surprised and, to be honest, quite relieved as well. So what I want to do today in this episode is talk about what I call wise strategy. We don't just need super smart strategy. Smart strategy is when you're kind of acting like a robot, you're being super intelligent, lots of analytical, rational decision making, lots of data number crunching going on to make the perfect rational decision. In actual fact, I think we should be going for wise strategy. And in my mind, that brings to mind a person of immense intellect, but also someone who is used to using their intuition, used to contemplating a decision, kind of putting it on the back burner, going about their daily life and then making a decision slowly in their own time and making a wise strategic choice. So today I'm going to be talking about the role of intuition and gut instinct in strategy. And fascinatingly, I'm going to be unveiling for you the empirical evidence that we have to back up this intuitive approach. Really quickly, before we dive into the detail, I want to make sure that you make the most of the time you invest listening to this podcast. And the best way to do that is to make sure you grab a copy of my free ebook, The Strategic Independent School Leader. It outlines how to answer the 6 essential questions that will clarify your school strategy and secure its future. In the world of business, strategy can be full of jargon, but it doesn't have to be that way. This is a jargon-free tool tailor-made to help private school leaders think and act more strategically. Download your free copy today at www.consultjuliette.co.uk/ebook. So strategy in a school context, you need to think about the ways in which intuition can influence your decision making. And the things that immediately spring to my mind are the fact that senior leaders, when I'm working with them on strategic decision making for their schools, you know your school community inside and out. You know how important it is to people about elements of inclusion, of diversity, elements of holistic and wide education, the importance of academic achievement within your community. These are areas where there is always potential tension. And intuition is what will guide you to know what is right and what is not quite right for your school and your community. So we need to find ways to build intuition into our strategic decision making. So first of all, what do we mean by intuitive decision making? So there's a couple of characteristics which are talked about in some of the academic literature, which I think are really helpful to give us a sense of what we're talking about here. So first of all, it tends to be a fast, automatic and unconscious process. This is something that happens in the background that we almost don't know that we're doing any thinking. We're making those intuitive decisions and analysing things from an intuitive point of view, and we're doing it in the background unconsciously. We're often doing it quickly as well. Secondly, it's rooted in past experiences and knowledge. So this is something that you build up over time, and that's why that word wise comes to mind when I think about intuitive decision making. So you're rooting your past experiences and knowledge, you're using your past experiences and knowledge and rooting your decision making in those. And what you're actually doing kind of behind the scenes unconsciously is your mind is finding similarities and trends and patterns within your past experience, then making connections and associations with your current decisions that you need to be making in order to reach a solution. So there's all this kind of mapping of these different past experiences happening subconsciously in your brain as you're using your intuition. And finally, it involves emotion. It involves an effective approach to decision making and a sense of emotion coming to the fore. So people use words like gut feeling, gut instinct, and it's that sense that you often can't always express in words what you're thinking and why, but you know that it's true in your gut. And it's this sense of incorporating emotion into our decision making. And there could be lots and lots of benefits to intuitive decision making within strategy. So it can be really rapid. You can do this on a dime if you need to, and therefore you can speed up decision making in your school, which in fast-paced moving situations is really important. It's also been found to be really effective within complex and time pressured decision making scenarios where there's lots of uncertainty, there's lots of complicated information. You're unlikely to ever find the one and only right answer. What you're doing is trying to find the right answer in your complex context in which you're working. So intuition can be really helpful in those situations. And the other benefit is it can act as a bit of an early warning system. And that prevents risky decisions from being made. So there's that little sense of caution that your intuition can just flag up inside your gut and say, hang on a minute, let's take our time. Let's step back and have a little bit more time to make this decision because something doesn't feel quite right. So it's using that emotive, instinctive early warning system to take a step back and prevent risky decisions from being made. Of course, on the flip side, there are disadvantages. If we only based our decision making on intuition, then we could be basing strategic decisions on out-of-date assumptions and all sorts of decision making biases that come into the mental processes we use to make decisions because we are only human. Those biases and those out-of-date assumptions may have a bigger role to play if we only rely on intuition. And also that's similar to the fact that there wouldn't be enough data or checking or fact checking behind the scenes. If you only make decisions based on intuition, you're missing out on an opportunity to use the data to uncover new patterns that maybe your intuition hasn't picked up on within the data. So you certainly don't want to over rely on intuition. But the question is, to what extent should we be balancing intuition and conscious thought when we're making strategic decisions? So we can turn to answer that question to the evidence, to the empirical findings within the academic research which has been going on for actually decades. When I looked into this, I was surprised to see there is a real solid body of work here which we can rely on. So a couple of research papers which I found really useful as I was researching this, which I will link to within the episode notes, show empirically that actually intuitive or unconscious decision making is really important in strategy. So first of all, there's a fascinating article called M&As Get Another Assist, so mergers and acquisitions get another assist, when CEOs add intuition into the decision mix. And this is an academic paper published in 2019 in the Journal of Business Strategy. And it looks at using intuitive decision making within strategy. And it found that the benefits of using intuition outweigh any negative drawbacks. And the advice within that paper is you have to use intuition, and the more that you can do that consciously and acknowledge as a strategic decision-making team, we trust our intuition, we want our intuition to be part of this process, that actually results in better strategic decision-making at the end of the day. The other really interesting paper which I came across is by a Dutch researcher called Aap Dijksterhuis, and he talks about all of the body of empirical research looking at unconscious thinking. So this is the type of thinking that happens in the background when we're distracted and doing something else. And what his research finds is that those people who allow their intuition to come to the fore actually perform significantly better in decision making than those who only relied on conscious thought. So this idea of allowing your background mind, your unconscious thinking, your intuition to develop actually resulted in, empirically found to be, improved decision making. And actually that empirical research covers a large number of different types of decision making. So things like buying a house or a car, things like clinical diagnoses, and even judgments in hypothetical court cases were all found to be improved decision making through the use of unconscious thought or intuition. So why is this? Again, the academic research has a couple of hints here as to why this really matters. Firstly, when we think consciously, so this is the kind of the rational, analytical, we are going to focus on a problem and consciously try and solve it, our brain tends to work in a serial manner. So it focuses on just the problem in hand and tries to solve that using a serial logic approach. When you're thinking unconsciously, however, your brain is working on multiple things in parallel. So simultaneously, your brain is mulling over this big, important strategic decision which you need to make, but it's also getting information that's coming in from a documentary that you're watching, or a conversation that you're having, or a book that you're reading, a non-fiction book that you're reading. All of these other things that are happening as your brain is mulling over this big strategic decision in the background can give you additional pieces of information which may not appear to be directly relevant, but allow your brain to create a new perspective on that strategic decision that you're needing to make. And your brain is much better at combining all of these types of information that are flowing at you, including information from your past experiences, from your memories, and incorporating that by working on all these different things in parallel. And then the end result is a gut instinct, but in actual fact, that is the result of an unconscious thought process which has been mulling away in the background of your brain. The other thing the evidence shows is actually that when we're making complex strategic decisions, we have to weight the different types of information that we have in front of us. So some information that we have in front of us may be critically important and should have a high level of weighting in our decision-making process. Other data points may actually be of limited significance and therefore should be given a lower weighting when making those decisions. Our unconscious thought processes have actually been shown to be very effective at weighting these different levels of importance for different types of information in the decision-making process. So that answers our first question. Yes, we should be balancing intuition and conscious thought in our strategic decision-making. The evidence shows that finding a balance of the two is really important. The question that then emerges in my mind is, okay, if we want to look for a balance, where should we be focusing more or less on? Now, my instinct, and you might think as well, that when we're thinking about more strategic, significant decisions, we should be relying more on conscious thought. And when we're making a decision about what to eat for lunch, we can rely on our intuition. In actual fact, the empirical studies show the opposite is true. So both of those studies that I referenced earlier that will be within the episode notes talk about the fact that in the complex decision-making processes where there is a large amount of information, where there is uncertainty, ambiguity, constant flux and change, actually those are the decisions where intuition plays the most important role. So contrary to popular belief, if we're going to be making quality strategic decisions, we need to be integrating intuition into our strategic discussions and decision making. So final thought for me today, how can we do this? Quite often, if we are coming at strategy thinking initially that it is all about conscious thought, how can we ensure that intuition can play a role within these strategic decisions? Firstly, the thing to note is that intuition needs time and space to develop, and for you to hear it, if you like, for you to hear that voice inside which is giving you that wise strategy, that wisdom and that intuition that comes from this unconscious thought. So you have to have time in your working week where you take a break, where you go for a walk, you do something completely different. Maybe there's a hobby or an interest that you like to pursue in the evenings. Taking the time to sleep on big decisions. Actually, we know that during sleep, our brain is making all sorts of connections from the day before. Thinking about it again the following day enables us to use those connections to their greatest ability and use that intuition that can come to the fore. So you need to find a routine during the week which allows time and space for your intuition to develop and for you to hear it as well. If your brain is constantly full of your day-to-day to-do list, you're not going to hear your intuition. Now, there's no one size fits all. Some teams may find that it's better to start with a strategic making process where there is a detailed, rational analysis of data and then purposefully create space to allow intuition to emerge. Other teams may find that it's best to have regular time and space for intuition and then later to turn to detailed analysis and rational thought and data crunching and so on. There's no correct answer. The research has actually looked at the order of this. There is no one size fits all solution. So it depends on your culture, your context in which you're working in your school, and the way in which your decision-making process tends to emerge. So experiment, try different ways of combining intuition and conscious, rational thought. So that's it from me for today. I invite you to have a wise strategic week. Find space in your week for your intuition to develop and quieten your mind at moments so that your intuition can actually be heard amongst your daily frantic to-do list. So that's it from me today, and I'll look forward to talking to you again next time. Thanks for listening to the Independent School Podcast, the podcast that helps senior leaders in private schools to think and act more strategically, both because they want to secure the future of their school and because they want to help build a more equal and just world. You can listen in everywhere that podcasts are available. And if you want to catch up on previous episodes or follow any of the links that I've mentioned today, just head over to www.consultjuliet.co.uk/podcast.